Hi guys and welcome to my channel. My name is Filip. Grzincic, Grzincic, Grzincic. Filip Grzincic, and this is my channel. So here I will post things about photography and Photoshop, tutorials, lessons, tips and tricks, everything. Today we're going to explain why do we control flash exposure with F number and not with shutter speed, and why is it that maximum syncing speed between flash and camera on most of the cameras is around 200 or 250th of a second. Okay, first I will introduce my speedlight. I have a Nikon speedlight SB910. If you have a Canon, well, I'm sorry, but it's okay. Any speedlight will do. So, if I put it on manual settings, I can set it between full power and 128th of a power. When this flash hits and transmits the light, it transmits it in a very short amount of time. So, if I take it on full power, it will transmit the light in only 880th of a second. So, imagine how short amount of time this actually is. It's shorter than snapping my finger. And if I put it on 128th of a power, it will transmit the light in 38,500th of a second. So that is ridiculously fast. Now that you know the speed of the flash, I will show you how shutter really works. Imagine this square is our camera sensor, and over it I have shutter curtains, first and second. So, when we hit the trigger, first curtain moves down and exposes the sensor, and second curtain then follows and closes the exposure. So, if we would have like 2-second exposure, it would look something like this. We hit the trigger, first curtain moves down, 1, 2, second curtain closes. So if we would fire flash during our exposure, it would look something like this. First curtain opens, 1, 2, and the second curtain closes. Flash fires in ridiculously short amount of time in comparison to our exposure. Even if we set the camera to 200th of a second, flash at full power fires at 880th of a second. So that's like more than 4 times faster. And how this works in practice? Well, let's see now. So I will set my camera to exposure of 1/8 of a second, f16 and ISO 100. And I will just take one image of this coin on the table. So we have completely dark photo because the ambient light is not strong enough to expose our sensor on these settings that we have on my camera now. So now I will introduce flash. I'm using triggers, and I will set flash on manual setting on 1/16 of a power. And now we will take a photo of a spinning coin. And as you see here, we have a completely sharp image of a coin. It can't be any more sharper than it is. That is because everything that is lit on this photo is lit by the flash that fired in 10,000th of a second. So this shot was taken on 10,000th of a second. It doesn't matter that my exposure set on the camera is 1/8 of a second, because everything that is lit in 10,000th of a second. So I can put my exposure to 1/4 of a second. I will get exactly the same thing. I will get always a very sharply exposed coin, because it's also lit in just 10,000th of a second. I can put my camera to half a second and I can move my camera. It doesn't matter, it will capture. See? And again, I got a completely sharp image of a coin, and you saw that I was doing the image like this. It doesn't matter, because at one point, at 10,000th of a second, the flash hits and it freezes everything. So I can do whatever I want with my camera. As long as the ambient light ambient light doesn't interfere in my image. Then we get something completely different, okay? So what happens when we shoot at speeds higher than 200 of a second? Let's see now. So at 200 of a second, shutter works like we explained before. First curtain opens, exposes the sensor in 200 of a second, and second curtain closes it down. But at 500 of a second, something different happens. First curtain opens, and before it has reached the end of the sensor, second curtain starts to go down. And when first curtain reaches the end, the flash fires. And the second curtain already covered a bit of the sensor, so that's why you see a black line in your photo. And you see it always on the lower side of the image, but second curtain comes from the upper side. It's because the image that falls on your sensor is always upside down. So the second curtain is the one that gives you shadow on your images if you expose it on the higher speeds than 200 or 250 of a second. So what happens at 4000 of a second? First curtain opens and the second follows right after the first one. So you see, sensor is never fully exposed. And that is why high sync speed systems are invented. They work the way that flashes fire a burst of flashes while the sensor is exposed with curtains going down one after another. And now that you know all of this, it's easy to understand that when you change your aperture, you're actually controlling the hole through which light travels to the sensor. So the smaller the hole, the less amount of light goes to the sensor. The bigger the hole, the more light comes to the sensor, okay? So that's why you control your flash exposure with your aperture settings and not with your shutter speed. That was all. Thank you. Don't forget to hit subscribe and stay tuned for more tutorials, tips and tricks about photography and Photoshop. Thank you and see you later.